All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple, having fun with faith, family, and friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson. With me, as always, my beautiful wife,
Katie Fredrickson.
I'm the convert Catholic, and she's
the cradle Catholic.
And here we are in a new episode. This is a trend. I think we're doing 2 weeks in a row, kind of topics based off of the gospel from Mass. So this week is off of Matthew 20.
A lot of these gospels are life lessons and can be applicable and relatable and relevant and can need to be kind of unpacked, because this one especially makes you like, what?
Yeah. If you're watching Katie's awesome Gospel Gems, she gave us just a taste of it. So we were talking about it and like, this is a good topic, because I know in my life I need to be, a lot of the things I post or talk about is that because I need to be reminded. So much of the things we know, but we need to be reminded. Mm-hmm. It's like we know, we forget. There's so many things going on. It's
sure.
like, I know this. I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. And we have to be constantly reminding. So the things that I post or the things I like to talk about are things that I need to work on in my own life.
You needed to hear yourself, right?
I needed to hear myself. So before we get started, let's start as we start with everything with a prayer. Mm-hmm. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Enkindle the fire of your love in our hearts. Guide our speech. Guide this conversation to those who are listening, that there may bear fruit from our discussion, that including ourselves, that we will reflect on our lives, on how not to be envious of others, help us to be happy for others, help us not to compare ourselves to others, help us to be grateful, and help us to be full of a life of charity, that we give the benefit of the doubt to others and to be happy for their successes. We ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. And the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
So, just for the sake of not assuming that everybody knows what the gospel was this Sunday, or could be listening to this way later.
Sure.
You want to just
read
it, or you want to just sum it up?
I'll just paraphrase it.
Sum it up.
So the gospel was Matthew chapter 20, 1 through 16. And it's the story of the laborers that labor. The one laborer labors all day, then there's one that comes an hour later.
And then
there's
noon.
the one at noon, and then there's one that comes at the very last hour. Mm-hmm. And when it comes time to get paid, everybody gets paid the same. Uh-huh.
And there's some grumble and griping, and he says, "What, are you envious of my generosity?" And I think that's what we really need to look at, that we all, well, first of all, the reading earlier in the
Isaiah, the first reading,
was my ways are not yours. Like, I don't think like you think. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you don't see the big picture like I do. You don't know the backstory like I do. You have no place to say anything because you don't even know the full story. So I think that's more that God is basically saying, you don't know the whole story. You can never know the whole story. I know everything there is to know. So trust me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take care of you, but I'm also going to take care of others. And I think that, we're unpacking more of how to deal with the others in our lives, right? So we can compare ourselves against them. We can contrast ourselves against them. We can judge them. We can envy them. We can be, jealous. We can, all these things rob us of our own contentment. And I think that's what we wanted to unpack. And, we can even go into like the 10 Commandments and how we, the first three of the 10 Commandments tell us how to deal with God. But then there's 7 that tell us how to deal with others. And 2 of them have that word covet in it, right? Which also talks about how to deal with this same kind of situation of wanting what other people have, or thinking you're better, or thinking you know better, or thinking they have it all together. Like that whole we don't know the big picture, right? And I think social media has made this so much worse, because everybody's putting their highlight reels on for everyone to see, right? And so I think it's even harder now to get away from these feelings and to navigate these ideas, especially for our young people, because that's all they see is, they definitely aren't seeing the big picture if you're just looking at somebody's social media,
Well, let's kind of define some terms from the Catechism about what envy is
Okay.
What some saints,
What is envy?
what some saints say about it. And obviously, you alluded to it. It's in the Decalogue and two of the commandments. You shall not covet anything if that's your neighbor's. You shall not desire your neighbor's house, his field, his manservant.
It's because there's thou shalt not steal, and then thou shalt not covet your neighbor's goods. So it's thou shalt not steal from your neighbor, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's goods. Those are two separate actions, and we really should understand what covet means.
Well, it's a disorder. The subtitle under Article 10, which is the 10th commandment, is the disorder of covetous desires. The sensitive appetite leads us to desire pleasant things we do not have. The desire to eat when we are hungry or to warm ourselves when we're cold. These desires are good in themselves, but often they exceed the limits of reason and drive us to covet unjustly what is not ours or belongs to another, which is owed to him. Then it goes on to talk about greed and avarice, but the part where it gets into envy, it says that 10th commandment requires that envy be banished from the human heart. When the prophet Nathan wanted to spur King David to repentance, he told him the story about a poor man who only had one ewe lamb, and then he treated it like his own daughter, and the rich man who, despite the great number of flocks, envied the poor man and ended up stealing his lamb. Envy always leads to worse crimes. Through the devil's envy, death entered into the world. And that's the big part, is that what was the devil doing when he was tempting Eve? He knew that he couldn't defeat God, but the tradition says is that when Lucifer fell, is that he had seen the plan that God had of elevating man, and that he thought that there should be no reason that man should be elevated above the angels, and that they were jealous. So he was going to do everything he could to make sure that communion and that didn't happen. That he'd rather
fall and
give up because he was so envious of what he saw. That's one of the lines I think is Maximilian Kolbe said, is that if the angels could be envious of one thing, it would be of us being able to receive God himself in the Holy Eucharist. Is that's what Lucifer saw, and that's part of why him and the fallen angels fell.
So it is important to note that there's a difference between envy and jealousy. Envy is more about what people get or have. It's like a painful feeling of what they have. Like, want that.
What it says, the next line, envy is a capital sin. It refers to the sadness at the sight of another's goods and the immoderate desire to acquire them for oneself, even unjustly. It goes on to say, envy represents a form of sadness and therefore a refusal of charity. The baptized person should struggle against it by exercising goodwill. Envy often comes from pride. The baptized person should train himself to live in humility. And I heard Father Mike, we'll link to his homily this week because he does a good job of unpacking a lot of this. But a lot of what pride is, it isn't like, I did hard work and I feel really proud about the job that I did myself. That isn't what it is. Pride comes from the fact that I'm better than you. That it isn't just I'm proud of my own works, but then I'm comparing myself to you and I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I have more whatever than you. I'm this than you. It's always a comparison than you. Like, that's what it is.
So what I'm saying is coveting is when you want what someone else has. Envy is when you don't want someone else to have what they've been given.
Yeah.
And then jealous. What's jealous?
Jealous is okay sometimes. So like God in I believe in Exodus, Moses, they talk about that God is a jealous God. When we go,
he wants us to him. He
it's
wants
just like, for example,
us to himself, right?
Yeah, but it's okay sometimes. For example, if my wife is whatever, it's okay to be jealous because I love her so much, but I'm not going to be crazy and turn into another thing. But if God is described as being jealous, and that's okay, obviously there are right circumstances. God is jealous when the Israelites are longing after these carved stones and these idols and not worshiping the true God and worshiping him, that he's jealous that he made us for a relationship with him, and when we're not, he's jealous that their hearts are going somewhere else. That is how I understand it. And jealousy, though, can lead into bad behaviors. So it's like it's okay to be mad or it's okay to like, okay, I love my wife so much. I'm jealous of all the time she's spending with this coworker or whatever, because there's too many times when that leads to the next step a lot of times. And it's just seems to what happens in a lot of relationships. So it's okay to be jealous, but it's another one to be a jealous, crazy person. And everything, there's a reason to be jealous. That not everything is, shady or, on the slide. But I think that's rare. I think being jealous, for the most part, we should be trying to, open those line of communications and to try to say, hey, you know what? Hey, when you do this, it kind of makes me feel a little jealous. I don't know where that's coming from, but this is why. And it's not because I don't trust you, but I think it's more because I love you so much, and I just want to let it out there that this is, the desire that I'm feeling inside of me.
A website has a way to break these three down. Envy is wanting something someone else has that you can't get or righteously get. Covet is an intense desire, a specific thing someone has that you can't easily get and wanting to take it from them. And jealous, not wanting to lose something that is rightfully yours. So holding on to that and getting jealous, like kind of what you defined that. So it does make sense for that. I mean, we can go down too far with this, but the point is that we are in this world, we are sharing this world with other people, and everyone's living a completely different life with different gifts and talents, with different situations, with different gifts, as in physical, as in gifts and talents, that you're born with, and then gifts and blessings, right, that are within their life. And we're called to love people, and love is willing the good of the other. So we should be, like you said, happy when something good happens to someone, even if it's not good for us, because what that does is that robs us of our own joy. It's not good for us. It's
an unhealthy preoccupation, right, when it becomes.
Right. We talked last week about forgiveness being for us. This is the same situation. Like when we talked about forgiveness is, when we hold on to a grudge, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Remember when we talked about that last week? It's like that similar feeling that when you are comparing yourself to others, when you are envious, when you are jealous, when you covet, what someone else has, that hurts you. That internally wears away at you, robs you of your joy, sends you down a pretty dark path, and
because it leads to resentment, same way unforgiveness does.
It's the same negative feelings that turn into something darker. And it does have its roots in pride.
I think a big part of it obviously is pride, but I think it's also from having a mindset that's based on scarcity. In this zero-sum game,
right.
Is that if somebody has this, therefore he's
that
taking
means
I can't have it. He's taking it away from me.
Yes,
and a lot of it isn't so much that they have it. It's just that you don't have it. Mm-hmm. It's like even if they worked 80 hours a week, even if they saved other money, they never went out, they sacrificed little stuff, and they had a nice car, a nice house, whatever the situation be, even if they did it all legit, we'll still even find ways to rationalize, oh, he probably inherited money, or he did this, or he's lucky, or this. Like, instead of us counteracting those, that's natural. That's our fallenness to think those kinds of things, because, we can be preoccupied with these material things. Most of it's material things, or, someone's wife, or ox or maid servant.
Yes, the ox and the maid servant.
Yeah,
I wish I had some
Wait
chickens. A minute, hold on. Let's look at this for a second. Actually, a maid servant, I think I would be pretty jealous about someone having a maid servant. And an ox, well, is that ox doing like the yard work? Is it pulling weeds?
No, they're going to be pulling plows.
But you know what I mean.
But the way, the antidote to that is to be happy for people. Mm-hmm. It's like, I heard that is a good line. I think it was Jordan Peterson said, is that be careful who you tell good news to. Your friends. Your friends is somebody who you could tell your good news to, for they're going to be happy for you. Because there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to hate on you.
Yeah.
They may not do it to your face.
Think you're bragging.
Well, it's just be careful who you share good news with.
Yeah.
And that goes the same with somebody you share bad news with.
Yeah.
That are they going to say, well, what did you, like in Job? Well, what did you do to deserve this? Or why you should have did this different, instead of just being there and being empathetic. A friend is somebody who wishes and loves you and wants good things for you. Not like, hey, it's like when I see people that I went to high school with or friends from college and they're doing well, and I have some friends now who are like successful and people that I know. Not once in my mind did I hate on them like, well, they got super lucky. I'm like, no, I knew these people. Like, they went to the same high school as me. And the next thing you know, they sacrificed. They did all these things. And
That's great. You're a saint, Bob. But my question is, what about people you didn't like? And then you find out they're successful. Do you have a hard time? Like, oh, well, that guy was a jerk. I can't believe he got this, and this. I'm saying it's a natural thing sometimes. You have to stop yourself. It is natural.
And think. Where I fall prey are, the people that we don't like. Not so much what they have, but like for me, I talked a little bit about last week about work. It's just like that whole idea of that we're equal. Like it's impossible. It's never going to be equal. No one's going to be at work going to do equal amounts of work. Or we always run into this with our kids. One's 7 and one's 10. So obviously, fair isn't always equal. Equal doesn't mean the 10-year-old's not going to be expected to know or do the things that the 7-year-old do, and vice versa. Yeah. And it's different, but they have, especially children, have a hard time understanding that everything's justice. They want what's due exactly where, and they're very literal. And it's very hard to have a nuanced conversation about, she's this and she's done this, and when you were this, it's just really hard.
I want to go back to what you said about the zero-sum game and the piece of the pie, because I think that's this whole thing.
Scarcity.
Yeah, the idea of scarcity, because, yes, I think that it is true when we're comparing and we're judging and we're envying and we're coveting and that is where it is pieces of the pie and mine and what I have you can't have, or what you have I can't have. That is a mindset, that is a viewpoint, and that becomes a reality when you have that mindset and that viewpoint. But if you do come from a place of love, love multiplies. This is what we have to remember, that love and goodness and beauty, those things are the reality. Those things are God. Those things are what was, created. Those things are multiplied when they are actively, when you actively participate in them. What evil is, it's not a thing. It's an absence of a thing, right? So evil itself is an absence of good. It's not its own thing. Does that make sense? So it makes sense for judgment, envy, jealousy, covetousness, anything that's that negative emotion. It's exactly what it is. It's a taking away from, which is what a negative is, right? It's taking away. Evil is an absence of the good. It's an absence of love. It's an absence of the things that would be multiplying. So when we have these negative thoughts, these negative feelings, yes, they breed, they can multiply, they can get bigger, but it actually is the absence of the goodness and the truth and the beauty that we're experiencing. It's a negative, which is why it's called negative. Negative emotions, negative feelings, negative actions that you do. Those are the absence of goodness, the absence of truth, the absence of beauty, the absence of love, which is willing the good of the other. So when you're doing the opposite, it's taking away. So it's going to be a piece of the pie. It's going to take away something, because that's exactly what you're doing, is you're negative. But when you look at something in goodness and in love, that's, Dr. King said, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Darkness cannot drive out, or light, or darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. We need to have something that multiplies to replace the absent feeling or the negative, to combat that negative. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Is that too philosophical?
No, it makes sense too. Let's go back to the gospel reading, Matthew. So what's the whole problem with the story? Is that the worker who worked all day, he doesn't want more money. He just wants the other person to make less.
What's it his business what that other person got paid? That's the point.
But it's not only his business, it's like he doesn't want more for he does. But I think maybe in the back of his mind is like, I want him to make less. So then that what he pays him less, then he'll give extra to me, maybe on the back end. But our pastor, Father Sammy, made a really good point, is that like obviously the story isn't about per se working. It's more about, hey, people who later in their life, they come to the Lord.
Deathbed confessional. Or,
like
a
late in life. Or I'm a convert, so I haven't been Catholic all my life, so I'm like a midday worker maybe.
Yeah, right. You're a midday. Yeah, I mean, when we want to really look at it, it's the kingdom of heaven,
yes,
right?
But if we're going to talk about it this way, so Father Sammy made a good point, is that the workers who would have got picked first out, stand around the strong, the young, they would be the first ones picked in the early of the day. Like, hey, I need 5 day laborers out. Give me you, just by appearance. Like, okay, the strong one, this one's younger. I know they can work hard. I'm going to pick them. And then as the day goes on, they still need more people. The only people who haven't been picked by, other people who are coming looking for day laborers, the ones sitting there are the ones who are older, ones who have a disability maybe, or missing an arm or something like that. So
again, we don't know the big picture.
We don't know the big picture, so
it's
that's why
none of your business.
So that's why
things
it was
can look unjust from the outside, but if they knew the big picture, but
just with context, it probably makes sense that the one who's still sitting there with only an hour left to work is that it's because he probably he was old, or he was crippled or something, and instead of us being happy, like, hey, this guy still has dignity, he can still earn something for his family, he still has to eat. There wasn't welfare, and there wasn't,
and
he
all was in his generosity giving that person a break.
So exactly, that's the messed up part, is that he wasn't getting
so
anything.
We're envious
he just wanted him to have less.
No,
that's just like a haters.
So it does say in the gospel. So when the first came, because they saw everybody else getting the daily wage, they thought they would receive more. That actually is in the gospel, that they thought they should get more. It's that idea of,
the zero sum.
It's the zero, right. And the expectation was, I should get more because compared to you, I'm this, so I should get this piece because of what I did. Now it's counterintuitive, it's anti-justice, which you think God is all just, but he's also full mercy. This is a God who is full justice and full mercy in this gospel. And so exactly, we're also dealing with someone who knows the big picture, and we don't. And we got what these workers that worked all day, they got exactly what they agreed upon, and they got what they deserved.
Well,
but it's nobody's business what the other ones got.
Exactly, but I think that's why a lot of companies or different places where people work is that you don't want to share with other people what everyone's getting paid. Because if the first guy would have just took his money and left, would have said, okay, he paid me, cool. He gave me what he said, I'm going home to my family. But when we know what other people are making, whether that's in your job, you look at them differently. Well, why? What do they know? What do they got on this person, and why are they making it? I work harder than them, and it just creates all this tension because we know
the negative emotions multiply, and it takes away.
But if the person would have just walked home and not paid attention to what everyone else was making, but that's just part of our nature. But I know that's the trouble that I get into. That's the problem, is that at work when we see hey, I'm doing X amount of work, and other people are basically doing nothing, and they're coasting, but we're getting paid the same. It's natural where people feel like this isn't right.
Yeah, it's natural, and it's okay, and it's there's
a time
where you can have frustration.
But I think where the difference
when you
is,
take it to another level.
But not only that, but I think that when you take that brokenness about our selfishness and our these emotions that come naturally, a sin isn't a sin until you act on it. So when I feel like that, I'm like, man, I'm out in the hot sun. I come in, and this dude's just sitting there all day. It's like, okay, that's not cool. So then, but if I go and take a picture of them or write an email and say so-and-so's doing this, or I go to be a tattletale and do those things, then that's different though. But at the end of the day, I have to catch myself and like, okay, I don't know the circumstances, whatever. I'm just moving on. I'm just gonna.
You do you. You worry about you.
That's all.
That's it.
That's all I should
because
be doing.
On the end of the day,
because
this
all
is
it
what
does
God
make
is
me
saying.
unhappy.
This is what God is saying. You have your life to live. You have your highs and your lows. You will sin. You will repent. You will come back. That's your journey. Don't worry about anybody else's journey. Stop comparing yourself to others. It should be in the same place of like we should look up to people who are holy. We should look up to people who are, have it more together than we do. Absolutely. We should try to look at them as models, but we shouldn't sit there and say, oh, must be nice. She's got this, and they got this. Must be nice that she has these gifts and talents and these blessings from God. Here I am over here wallowing in my misery and pity party that I have this, and this, and I have to do that, and I have to do that. But if I had her life, I'd have my house cleaner. If I had her life, I would do this. If I had her house, if I had her this, and if I you start to spiral into these things.
But we don't see the whole picture.
We don't see
like
the
God
whole picture
sees.
like God
you don't know.
sees.
Maybe that person's struggling with whatever, depression, anxiety,
right?
Or so a loved one's dying and they're sick, or we don't see those things. That's why we're called to be give people the benefit of the doubt.
And we're also called to be vulnerable because you could be that other person too that someone's envying. And if you're vulnerable with them, you're opening them up into your life and your struggles, then it starts to be more, I have these struggles too. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect, but we're all in this journey together. And this is how I deal with those things. And this is how you can deal with those things. And we're in it together. Because again, we still need to live on this planet together. We are supposed to love God and love others, and to love is to will their good. And our vulnerability can help someone else's sin, right? Can help someone else's comparison that they think that maybe we have it all together when I don't, right?
Yeah, I mean it's hard because if we look at only one category of what it is, whether that's they got money. Okay, well maybe they got health issues. It's like a spectrum.
Yeah, but why do we have to look at the negative? Like,
but
maybe
what I'm saying,
they have money, but maybe they're depressed. Like, well, no.
But what I'm saying is that we're not seeing everything. It's like we don't see the big picture. Be really healthy, but they don't have whatever. Like, there's no one's going to have it all together in the relationship, spiritually, economically, socially, physically. All these things. There's always going to be something that we don't know.
Right.
And my point is that we should just give the benefit of the doubt and not be worried. Today is enough for myself, the things to worry about.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And that's what I say.
You do you.
That's what I tell myself at work. I don't know where I came up. I'll say some days we're the hammer, some days we're the nail. Mm-hmm. That's my little saying. Because yesterday I had an easy day. But I wasn't saying, oh man, all these guys are working so hard and I should hurry up and go do more work because they're working hard and I'm not. It's just Some days it's just the way that it is. That some days you have easy days and some days are hard days. And every day is a hard day if you put it compared to other people. Because it's never going to be good.
And here's the thing. All of these feelings, all of this negativity, all of it is centered on the self.
Yes.
Me, what I get, what I don't have, what I want, what I'm missing out on, what I'm experiencing, me. It's completely self-centered, self-reflective, and you're turned in on yourself because you might be thinking about other people, but you're thinking about that person in terms of your own self, your lens. You have your lens on. But when
you're not truly looking at the person,
you're looking at them, but you're looking at them through the lens of what do they have to do with me? What do they have to do with me? What do they have that I don't have? What are they doing that I'm not doing? What are things that? So again, let's go back to those workers. They worked their day. They did everything they were supposed to do. They agreed on a wage. They got paid. Just go home, man. What does it matter to you what the other people? They looked through the lens of me. They didn't look through the lens of the other. They didn't assume a positive intent on either the vineyard owner or the people that were working. They don't know the big picture. All they saw was themselves and how it affected them. And that is a natural thing, but at the end of the day, if we put on the lens of others, if we put on the lens of willing the good of the other, if we put on the lens of improving ourselves and again, not worrying about ourselves in the sense of I only have to worry about myself. I don't want to worry about other people, as in worrying about bettering making the choices that we make that are going to make us holier, that are going to make us more virtuous. None of that has to do with comparing ourselves to others, even when they're doing good things.
Well, look what just happened to Saul and David. David stepped up when no one else would to take on Goliath. Mm-hmm. He stepped up. He's slain Goliath. Then he became a warrior, and he was fighting for King Saul. But as soon as Saul heard the people singing, Saul killed his thousands, but David killed his tens of thousands.
Mm-hmm. He went crazy.
He went crazy, and
he turned inward on himself
instead of thinking, like, man, we have this awesome warrior. He's fighting for Israel. He's fighting for me in the kingdom, and he's my friend, and he used to play music for me, and look at him. He's doing these things. But it turned into, they like him better than me. It was this comparison back and forth. Mm-hmm. And then he became envious. Then it was like, no, I'd rather cut off my nose to spite my face. Mm-hmm. I'd rather bring everything down and lose everything.
And
he was consumed by it.
Consumed with someone else like him,
based upon other people's perspectives, right. And some little stupid song, but it wasn't even true. It was like, it was like an over exaggeration of a song.
No, I love this line though. I love that idea. And it's a good thing to talk to your kids about this. And it's reality. There's always going to be somebody better than you. You're going to be good at something, and there's always going to be somebody better. You're going to, flourish in something, and there's always going to be somebody who flourishes better. The only person you should be better than, the only person you should be attempting to be better than is yourself. You should always be trying to improve on yourself, because that is
who you're in competition.
That's who your competition is.
Trying to be the best version of yourself.
Trying to be the best version of yourself.
Better than you were yesterday.
Better than you were yesterday. Yeah. And that could go for anything. School, sports, your job, and anything. Just try to be better. Working out. And anything in your life, if you want to improve it. Yes, it's good to have models and to say, I want to train like that guy. And that's an inspirational person to me. Or I don't want to end up like this person, and these were the choices that they made. Neither one of those need to be comparing or judging. It can be using those as examples to maybe catapult me to make the right decisions. But at the end of the day, I'm making the decisions to make myself better than I was yesterday. So I want to compete with myself. I want to be better than I used to be. I want to be better than who I was yesterday.
So instead of Lucifer trying to be the best angel that he could be to serve God the best way he could do, instead, look what happened. And it's funny that in the beginning there was this envy, this pride of what the fall was, is that the same way that Jesus made it to the cross, is that's based on him being, because what it says in it was in Mark and in Matthew, it says Which one do you want me to release to you, Jesus or Barabbas? Jesus, who's called the Messiah, Pilate then says, for he knew it was out of self-interest that they handed Jesus over to them. So it wasn't so much
operating out of
they were operating out of fear that one person's isn't it better for one person to die than the whole nation? Mm-hmm. Or hey, he's messing up everything here. They were worried about, they were holding so tight to what they had, mm-hmm. that Jesus was creating all this. Look, he's got all these followers over here, and now they're not going to come to the temple, and they're not going to pay this money. So it was out of this envious that they killed God. And instead of
mm-hmm.
recognizing the truth is right there in front of them, and that he's trying to bring about a different kind of kingdom based on love, and they just were so concerned about the little that they had that they were going to hold on to it no matter what, even if that cost an innocent person their life. Mm-hmm. It just didn't matter. That's how the original fall, and how obviously that was part of the plan, that God was saved the world through that. So
mm-hmm. through that action,
God can even take this envy and this covetousness and self-serving and turn it into something good. He saved the whole entire world this way. It's just. Mm-hmm. But I think part of it, it's that negative side that you're talking about. That is that we have to not fall into the trap, which we talked about last week some, of not getting joy out of other people's downfall. That's a part of this culture that, like, somewhere within us, when like a celebrity like falls,
especially if you don't like them.
Especially like last week,
what about
2 weeks ago when
I was
Aaron,
gonna say
when Aaron,
I was gonna go
Rodgers,
there. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go there.
When Aaron Rodgers got hurt in the first play, and to be honest, I didn't really feel that because he's not playing for the Packers anymore.
But what if he was?
Oh, I would have been rooting for it.
See, is that good?
It's good for my team. So that is kind of a competitiveness that he wouldn't be there because that's the only chance we'd have to win. But now we have zero chance. So it's like, whatever.
Right.
But my point is that, but that's most of like, internet traffic and, these tabloid type stuff is like, look at a celebrity and like when they fall, like, oh, that's what he gets. He's had all the money. He's got the world. He's this, he's famous. He's got this and this, and people just start piling on is that they love to watch, the mighty fall. Yep. We love the underdog story, but the bad part of watching and getting joy out of another person's misery is a big trap that the devil sets, is that, it's really hard. I mean, I had to catch myself, because my first instinct is like, good, they get what they get. They should. But then it's like, okay, whoa, stop. That's my sinfulness. All right, stop. How do we counteract that?
Mm-hmm. How do you counteract it? Because it's
prayer.
But in the moment, it's hard.
In the moment, you have to stop. You have to catch yourself. That's part of anything in growing in the spiritual life on these things. The only way to do it is to practice the pause and practice the presence. You have to catch yourself in the moment. Like, okay, whoa.
Especially if it's someone, though, that really hurt you or your family.
But man, really, I'm going to link to the Father Mike's because he really talks about the Rwandan genocide too.
Oh,
it's like, man,
gosh.
It's like some of these really bad forgiveness.
I was just going to say that.
So he's talking about forgiveness.
Those forgiveness stories are so profoundly
crazy,
mind-blowing. Just like Saint Maria Goretti. That's
like that one, or
it's like, wow, those people can forgive that, and I can't forget what somebody did to me in grade school. Maybe I need to get over
Corrie
this.
ten Boom, like these people who were in Nazi concentration camps.
Yeah, really, super powerful.
It's like,
forgiveness
but we
stories.
can't do that on our own. So how do we, in real time, when we know there's somebody who we don't really care too much for, and something bad happens, to not get joy out of their mishaps or their misery? It's where,
especially because in our mind we'll think they deserve it. That would be your first.
That's your first thing, and that's natural. But as long as you don't act on it and like take it to the next level, catch it in yourself.
Be cognizant.
And whatever that may be, whether that's taking it to prayer, whether that's journaling and say, hey, when this happened, I caught myself taking a little joy in that, and it's kind of scary to me, maybe, so that's what happened to me. So then what I do immediately, I start praying for the person. Then I offered up the next day on Mass, and I just kept praying for the person. And then those things go away. Like God wants to do that.
Again, because goodness and truth and beauty and love multiplies. Those other feelings, these other things we're talking about, they all are negative. And they get bigger, but they just just makes the absent, it sucks the goodness out. It sucks the love out. It makes it more void.
Well, I think too, the other thing is that a lot of it also comes from fear. Is that there's a fear, like we said, with the scarcity or the zero sum, that there's that I'm not going to get anything. Then I'm not going to get anything, and I'm not going to have enough, and then this thing,
That's true.
And it's scary in the Bible. The Matthew principle is that to those who have much, more will be given. Those who have little, everything's gonna be taken away. So
and that's
the scary part. But the way to
that says that's in this gospel too.
It's Matthew,
isn't it? Wait,
it's Matthew. It's close.
What was it last weekend? Then?
Matthew 21 through 16.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at was the antidote is a grateful heart. Is gratitude.
Counting your own blessings.
Is that if we're focused on all the good that we have, then we're not focused on what we don't have. If our eyes are focused on not, I got these things, but thanking God that we have those things. That's how I start my day every morning. It's like, I say the morning offering, and then as soon as I get to Mass, that's the first things I start to do. I just thank God for all the things. I just thank Him for today. Thank Him for my family, my wife, my life, my job. It's like I sit
think
there.
a good habit to have is like, what is it called? Acts, adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, and supplication. So you're saying adoration, you're acknowledging who God is and His power. Your contrition, you're sorry, what you're sorry for, and then
those
thanksgiving,
things where you fail.
And thanksgiving where, you
taking
have
an inventory of all the
right.
blessings. It's basically an inventory. And a lot of those things we take for granted. Hey, when I hit the light switch, the lights turn on. When I open up the faucet, there's clean, drinkable, good water that you can drink. Like there's a lot of things that we just take for granted. Hey, that we got good roads and we have a nice house. Like there's like a lot of things like my health. It's like when you're sick and you don't feel good, it's like we really take these things for granted until you don't have them. So it's like, but being grateful on the front end, it's like it really helps us to not look at other people's things if we're happy with what we already got. It's like what we tell the kids, like, we'll be happy with what you got. Well, it's not just, it's because they want. Like every time you go to the store, it doesn't matter. Hey, we're just going to walk in the store. No, I want this. Oh, can I get this? And I want this. I'm like, we already got like 10 of those. Yeah, I know, but this and this. I'm like, let's just be happy with what we have. It isn't always
it's important
about
also to acknowledge that when, like, to have that kind of dialogue with your kids of how fleeting the happiness is when they get the thing. So when they get a thing and be like, okay, how happy are you that you got that thing? And it's like, how long did that last? And they actually are pretty honest. They're like, yeah, it really didn't last that long. I'm like, don't you wish you would have saved your money and probably would have gotten, I don't know, just having those kind of dialogues with your kids in the moment. Or having them be thankful or doing things for others that have way less and seeing that and being appreciative for what they have. We did this field trip to Feed My Starving Children, which is an organization that feeds children in third world countries. And, the students all packed food. And we knew where they were going to be going to somewhere in Africa, and we prayed over the boxes that they would make it there okay, and we prayed for the people that it was going to feed, and then we watched a video of some students or some kids in the countries that benefited and from getting the food sent to them, and how at first they could barely even walk because their bones were so brittle from malnutrition, and then they showed the kids like a year later and they're flourishing, but they're also showing like where they live and what they look like and all these things. And, we come from a pretty affluent community. So it's so powerful for those kids to see other kids living and thriving with hardly anything. Right. And I think that opened Avery's eyes for sure. Cause the last few days she's been praying for people who are going without food or people who don't have these things. It's hard to, you have to step outside of yourself. You have to look at, comparison, right? In a positive light of your blessings and how you could help others and not.
It should, the comparisons should drive you to that, how well, that you always have it better than somebody else. And that if you have two coats, you should be giving one to someone else as best as you can. I mean, perspective is a big deal. A lot of times our perspective sucks. Is that because we're too close to it, or we're too, we're too lukewarm, we're too comfortable. Like everything we have is comfortable.
And this in our culture right now, our generation everything is built around that comfort, for sure.
And instantaneous this and that. We don't appreciate the things that we do have. And it's, it's sad, but it takes sometimes to take a step out to go and see, whether that's with your own eyes or to go serve. But that's the antidote. The antidote to I want what someone else has, or, they have all this stuff, and how come I don't have that? And they do this, and how come we're not doing that? And then you show them the opposite of like, oh, wow, okay, there's perspective. Okay, maybe we do have it pretty good, just from, how I grew up to where we live and how we live, it's like night and day. But But the difference is that those kids in Africa, they're happy because they're not comparing. They don't know what's going on in America. Like they should have more. They're just happy that they're getting a meal and they're living that day. They're not trying to say, well, I wish I was in America doing this. That's why they're always smiling. They're always happy, even though they don't have much. But they have family. Most of them have God. They have each other. It's like, they have song, they have dance, they have friends. They still, the things that don't cost money, they have in abundance, and they appreciate each other, and they're thankful for the things that they do have. The things we own end up owning us, and then it's like, okay, well, it's not enough. I need more. And it's, unfortunately, that is part of in America. It's like it's never enough, and it's hard.
It just shows that we'll never be satisfied until we put, like, there's always going to be I'll be happy when fill in the blank. I'll be happy when fill in the blank. And when you get the fill in the blank, it doesn't happen. And you can hear countless celebrities tell that same story over and over again. How, like, what Jim Carrey, wasn't it Jim Carrey that said, or was it Bono?
Both, and Russell Brand and all.
Yeah, I wish that people could just see what it's like to have everything you've ever wanted and see you still don't, you're depressed because, but I'm still not satisfied, right? And when you look at people who don't have anything but have God, they're just pure joy. They're just pure happiness.
Those who have nothing and have God have everything. And those who have everything without God have nothing. And there's nothing to add on to it.
Right.
Because, like you said, those material possessions are fleeting. You can't take any of them with you, and they don't last. And a lot of them, most of the stuff break. It's like nothing lasts. Everything starts to depreciate as soon as you get it. But it's to be thankful, and I think part of it is not just being thankful, but to take care of the things that we have. That's like you have a blessing, whether that's your own body and yourself. You have this great gift from God. I always say, because I'm training some guys at work and I'm into working out, but I always ask them, because the guys I work with eat so bad. I'll say, like, hey, if I gave you $1 million racehorse, it just came from Kentucky Derby, just won it. What would you feed the horse? What would you feed it? Like, like the best grains and oats, and you'd probably run it around the track. And yeah. I said, well, you treat a horse like that, but you know how much more valuable you are than a horse? I don't care if it's the Triple Crown winner, but your body's a temple, straight to the drive-through. Like, we have to take a step back, and the greatest gift is this body that's breaking down, that we need to do the best, to be the best stewards, not just of our planet, but of the gifts of our body. That we don't be jealous about what someone else looks like, but be trying to do the best that you could do with the gifts that God gave you by you not abusing it, not drinking too crazy and doing all these different things, but to appreciate it and to be thankful for it, and in turn by serving and using your body for good and for helping other people. And it's just, envy is a tough thing, but it's something that we all need to grapple with, because
I think
it leads to a lot of other sins.
I think that to be, again, I feel like every time we talk about things, I say this, but it's true. We need to be reflective and intentional. And when you do some kind of examine that's daily, when you do some kind of examination of conscience every night, like when I did the prayer process for a very long time during like a Lent, like it was like a lot of days in a row, that's when I started to really pick up on the same behavior I was doing every day, and when I was doing it and who I was doing that with, right? And I started to change behaviors because I started to see patterns, and I started to stop myself then in the moment, because sometimes we can be on autopilot, right? Sometimes you can have a knee-jerk reaction to things, but it's important to catch yourself in the moment, or reflect on your day, reflect on your behaviors, and start to catch patterns and start to catch different ways that you react to things. And, well, I really want to change that. I don't want to be that person.
Well, then that's you can help put up those safeguards, because you know those triggers.
Exactly.
Like for me, I know some of my triggers, so that I need to do different things, different to prepare that expecting those things are going to happen, and then when they do happen, almost like role playing it out. Like when this happens, hey, this happens. I need to do this or I need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we exhausted this topic. Is there anything you want to add about?
Just that the more that we focus on our own pain and misery, that internal
loathing.
No, not loathing. Self lens, right? The lens of self, like how everything affects me, right? The more miserable you are in everything. And what we talked about last week with forgiveness and all the things people have done to me wrong and me, right? Like, and in this and what I don't have and what, when you have that, you're miserable.
Well, the antidote would be charity, that you're thinking
right,
about other
that's
people.
What I'm saying. So the opposite of that is love.
I really like the quote from Blessed Carlo Acutis, who we were supposed to have a guest on tonight, which we're rescheduling because he is actually interviewing Blessed Carlo Acutis' mother tonight for this movie. But we'll get into that in the future when we do it. But the quote from Blessed Carlo is that the difference of happiness is a shift of our eyes. Is that when we look internally is when we're going to be unhappy. When we're focused on me, what's mine, what do I got? But if we're focused on God, we forget about ourselves. And if we want to feel that joy, not joy of someone else not getting things, the true joy that brings lasting peace and love and all these things, that joy is a self-forgetfulness. It's a carefree timelessness, because when you're giving yourself away out of love and charity, I mean, bombs could be blowing up and you're like in the zone. You're like, you're full of like happiness when you're helping other people, especially if it's something you're passionate about. For me, it's, talking about the faith, I get excited about it. I didn't realize it's almost been an hour. We're sitting here talking about, nerd alert. But I think you're onto something when this whole Catholic thing that we're doing, it needs to be intentional. No one accidentally becomes a saint. No one accidentally does the right things in the heat of a moment, because our natural instincts and our bad behaviors and our sinfulness kick in. The only way to curtail those behaviors or to stop it flat out is to be present in the moment and to be cognizant of your own self in real time. It's almost sometimes taking a step back into watching yourself, whether that's through an examine or journaling, getting in touch with these things that happen to us or happen from within us, is that it has to be intentional. Nobody is going to be, obviously it comes from grace, but we have to cooperate with that grace, and it takes intentionality. To be a disciple, it means that you have to have a plan. You have to, it's not just going to happen by accident. What if you just go with the flow, you just drift. If you want to, go against, in this culture, you want to go against the stream, you got to fight. You have to have a plan. You have to have a path. You have to have, a lot of times it's easier to follow the path of a saint, or to look and see what other people who are smarter and holier and better than me, what they did and how they handled these situations. Because for every situation, whether that's lust or envy or greed or whatever it may be, there's somebody who's dealt with that and has practical advice on how to help you. Not everything do you have to make all those bad mistakes and to keep doing it on your own. That there's support groups for people who are alcoholics. There's support groups for people who have gambling problems, or I used to be addicted to all of those things and a rageaholic.
Oh,
but there's people out there. There's groups out there that help, but it's also seeking it out. It's being intentional. Nobody gets to heaven on accident. That's just not how it's going. It almost means that you have to purposely be Catholic.
Sorry. I
You're
know what
laughing.
you did that.
You're laughing.
Yeah.
Well, that's my new endeavor that we're working on, Purposely Catholic, because I'm passionate about it, and for me, because I've had to start from scratch, and actually like a negative 500, I had to start from, and it's been a long journey, but it's been plotted out, and it's been, a long time of trying to be intentional about how I live my life and putting in safeguards and rails and boundaries and different things to help me along the way.
I think at the end of the day, even though it's counterintuitive, and that's what this gospel is, counterintuitive, I think God's giving us a roadmap for happiness, and it's stop thinking about yourself. Your life's not about you. It's not, and that don't compare yourself to others. Yes, like your life is about the other person, but not about what they have and what they get. It's about how you can help them and how you can serve them and how you can love them. And that love multiplies, and evil just sucks the life and the joy out of everything. And that the more we cooperate with the negative, we become negative. The more we cooperate with the good, we become good, and good multiplies. And I think that so much of this is a recipe for true happiness and contentment and joy and satisfaction in a way that's more sustainable and long-lasting versus fleeting. Because you could experience a little joy in someone's misery, but it doesn't last very long. No. But if you don't allow what others have or get that's different than you, or if you don't allow those things to bother you, you're at a sustained joy and happiness that can't be altered. And that's such a different, that's not fleeting. It can't be bothered. It's just there.
And a lot of times too, what it ends up doing is you start resenting God because it's this unfair. So who eventually you're going to blame? It's you, God. You created this whole system. This guy's a jerk. He steals. He does this, and all he does is get more. He gets everything, and he's a jerk, and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. And I'm over here slaving away, and I'm sacrificing, and I'm reading my Bible, and I'm going to church. I'm saying my prayers, and I can't get a lucky break. So who next in line is getting tore down? Not your neighbor. Mm-hmm. Well, God, it's you. It's your universe. You're in charge, allegedly. That's who we start going on. And Father Mike does a good job in, it's one movie I've never seen. I've never seen Amadeus.
You never saw Amadeus?
Never seen it.
Oh, we had to watch that in music class all the time.
I
feel like I saw it two times.
I think they did show it, but I was absent.
I mean, it's kind of like, I didn't think I should have watched it as a grade schooler. It had some things in it, but I think he would fast forward through some things. But anyway.
But the story behind it is that Mozart was a wild person, and the other guy who was like who he was with God, and he was doing all this stuff, and then he saw that Mozart was like a genius, and he was getting all these gifts, and all this stuff was happening, and he started hating on him because he's doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Then he turned away from God, and he blamed God.
Yeah.
And then at the end of his life, Mozart was working on the Requiem.
Yeah.
And the other guy who was helping him, I forgot what his name was helping him. And
I don't remember either, but I know the character is I know who the actor is.
They were both nominated for Academy Award,
yeah.
But by the end, he was helping him finish it, and it was like the most beautiful, the Requiem. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But the whole punchline was that if they would have figured this relationship out instead of being so jealous and so envious of, well, I'm doing all this and he's doing this, and if they would have been working together, they could have, how much good music they could have been producing this whole time. And the funny part is that Amadeus means loved by God.
It does? Oh.
Amadeus, yeah. It means loved by God. That's like the whole ironic part of the whole movie. So yeah, we'll link to Father Mike's homily. He does a better job than us laying this out. But we're trying to lay this out in a practical way, because this kind of stuff I deal with, I'm trying to be open and transparent and vulnerable, because these are the like I said, I've dealt with where I need to forgive, and, I can, be covetous at times myself, and I do get jealous from time to time, just like, everybody. But what separates that is that I have to try to catch myself, and then I have to try to find ways to stop the cycle of that pattern of every time this happens, then I need to do this, or whatever that may be, whatever works for you, but trying to do something to stop that pattern of behavior, because it will continue.
It consumes you, and again, that negative emotion, it does get bigger. But like I said, in the sense of an absence of the good, it's going to continually attack the goodness and deplete it.
And
you
then
know,
it leads
suck the fun out, suck the joy out.
But not only that, it
anything
leads
with
to
that envy leads to worse, and it gets darker,
and you get darker.
You could look at again the same thing that we talked about last week with forgiveness and letting those kinds of things just eat away at you. You could all these different villains. That's exactly what it was. You know, that would not everybody starts out as this evil villain. They become who they are because of a festering of these negative emotions that they take over. You got to watch it. You just got to watch it. That's all.
So hopefully this inspired you to take a look at yourself introspectively to see, hey, maybe I am a little envious and covetous of my neighbor and his nice car or his promotion or his kids are on the honor roll or whatever it may be. There's something that each one of us has, something that is more unique to us. But it's there, and it's okay to have those feelings. It's another one to squash them and try to replace it with the things that we were talking about, like gratitude, of being happy for what we have, to not focus on ourselves, but to focus on others. So we'll end there. Anything else you want to add? All right, well, we hit the hour mark, so we were cruising along. We wanted to do 40 minutes, but when we get talking, we can't help ourselves. So we appreciate you for listening. If you would be so inclined, feel free to give us a 5-star review, write us a review or an email. We're working on booking a bunch of guests upcoming to do on the Zoom StreamYard, and we're going to start putting those. We're doing a lot more on the YouTube. So we do have some upcoming guests and some editing and some stuff we're working on. Like I said, I'm working on a side project called Purposely Catholic. So we're going to be coming out with some great stuff to try to help others in this journey on some things that helped me. So other than that, I just want to say thank you. I'm not envious of other podcasters. I just like to learn from them and try to be as good as they are, inspired to bring you better content. Hopefully today worked. What do you think? Did it work? Mm-hmm. You think it was a good episode?
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't a good episode?
Yeah. Why you're like dragging this out?
I want to feel affirmed that this went well. I dragged you down here, so I want to make sure. Well, on that case, I guess it wasn't that great.
I think it was good.
Well, okay.
I think that's weird to talk about. How did you think the episode went while the episode's still going? That's a little weird.
I was trying to be weird for weird's sake.
Okay. Let's end in prayer.
Let's please do. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
World without end. Amen.
Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.